Chapter 301, Taking Stock of Their Loot, Part 1. In an express hotel, Shijing city of Qingzhou. Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu sat cross-legged on their own single standard beds. Little Fury laid obediently on Lu Xiaoyu's head. Lu Shu asked, "My gain in this remains is pretty large." "Little Fury, what are the 3 blue fruits for?" Little Fury gestured for a long time. Lu Xiaoyu said, "It doesn't know. It only felt that the fruit would taste good and be very useful, hence it went to snatch them. It's asking if it can receive one." "No," Lu Shu rejected Little Fury's request tactfully. He continued, "I still have 11 flower petals here, but neither of us could not use it. Let's store it in the Seal of Lands first, then sell them when we find the chance to. It seems like the petals can be brewed with hot water to be drank, with effects similar to magical stones." Lu Shu was feeling curious. After defeating Anthony Smith using the corpse dog, no soul ball was produced. In the celestial map, there was still only the colorful soul balls of the Class C spy whom he killed in the Beimang remains. Lu Xiaoyu was also adamant that it should not be fed to the soul. Was it that only slaying a ghost would produce one? Lu Shu was not very sure, he could only test it out the next time there was a battle. The greatest economic gain from this trip to the remains was still the watch which used to belong to Little Fatty. The $420,000 IOU, once produced, settled the transfer of account. As for Chen Bailey's words about another form of fortune which would befall the Chen family, nobody knew what he meant. There were now over $500,000 in Lu Shu's bank account. He simply could not resist opening his online banking records on his phone every hour to check the money. It was just too irresistible. He was deeply worried that all these were just a dream and the numbers would disappear once again in a blink of the eyes. Lu Xiaoyu always looked down upon such behavior. "Lu Shu, can you be more mature? How rude. These are money we earned through our own efforts. What's wrong with looking at them?" Lu Shu was unhappy. "This time, I had exchanged blows once with the Class B master. I personally felt that it is still too strenuous to fight a proper Class B master. I could have been killed any second. However, I don't think there will be many Class C who are my match." "How did you and the little fatty run into the fighter? You should have asked him where did he kill. In this way, a stronger soul could have been exchanged." Lu Xiaoyu looked at Lu Shu calmly for a few seconds. "The soul has been captured." Lu Shu was momentarily stunned. "The Class B? What the heck? It took so much effort for me to cultivate to Class C, and Lu Xiaoyu had easily encountered a Class B fighter? What is this?" Lu Shu mumbled sorely, "Draw it out for me to have a look. It still requires about 20 odd days for it to manifest properly. The amount of celestial energy it needs is simply too great," Lu Xiaoyu said. "Oh. That's true," Lu Shu nodded. This time he no longer had to worry too much about Xiaoyu's safety. Bringing a Class B master around as bodyguard, there would not be many people in the whole world who would dare to touch her. However, what about his own dignity as her elder brother? Lu Shu cleared his throat. "You still have to take note of your own capabilities and strengths. A foreign power is still a foreign power." What the heck? To be honest, even Lu Shu himself felt that it was a little unreasonable. Moreover, the crucial thing is, the soul was not even a foreign power. It was a capability that came with her cultivation technique, and she could even store the soul in the celestial map to bring around. In that case, the white sand he collected could be put to good use. He should just give it to the soul to use. Lu Shu still remembered when he was fighting with the person. The power of the white sand almost overwhelmed him. They totally could have been used as bullets, pretty frightful. Lu Shu decided to change the topic. "Are there any other gains? Other than the soul, Naughty Pig and Big Meow. Also, the space ring in the hand of the white man. I've not opened it, but all his assets are probably inside," Lu Xiaoyu said calmly. Space ring. Lu Shu realized what he got from this remains were peanuts. Lu Xiaoyu was the true winner. Class B soul, space ring, the entire assets of the Class B master. The feeling was just like repeatedly killing the boss in a game and collecting all the goodies that it dropped. However, Lu Shu did think about how good it would be if he could get hold of another matrix eye like the Seal of Lands, which came with its own space. He could give it to Lu Xiaoyu for her to stuff enough snacks to enjoy wherever she goes. That was the kind of rich and extravagant life he wanted. Their combined power now could be considered very great. He himself was a Class C, Lu Xiaoyu a Class D nearing C. In addition, they possessed the soul of a Class B Earth element metahuman. This did not seem to mean much in their country, but it would still be enough for them to travel far and wide without much to fear, as long as they did not provoke any extra fearsome groups. Lu Xiaoyu passed the space ring to Lu Shu. Lu Shu looked at it carefully and his face instantly glowed in elation. Ding ding ding. Lu Shu directed the celestial energy into the ring and upon activation, poured out dozens of gold bars inside. They did not expect the guy to be bringing around so many gold bars. May kind people be blessed with lifelong peace. After a count, it turned out to be 30 bars in total. After a weigh on their hands, it seemed that the gold bars were not too heavy, perhaps around 100 g. What was the gold price this year? 327 per gram? In that case, the 30 bars. Lu Shu's hands trembled. That would be $1 million in value? Even though it did not seem much for a Class B boss to walk around with $1 million, to Lu Shu this was a gigantic sum of ill-gotten gains. Not only the 30 gold bars, there were also $100,000 worth of cash, which were all taken out in bundles by Lu Shu. This was the feeling of striking rich overnight. Even though all these US dollars could not be spent right now, even though all these gold bars could also not be exchanged for money in such a short time, who could argue that this was not getting rich overnight? Now, Lu Shu simply could not wait to be promoted and go all over the world in search of Class B bosses. It remains to have a good chat with them about life and aspirations. Can you guess what is Lu Shu's aspiration? His aspiration is to be rich. Lu Shu kept all the gold bars and US dollars in the Seal of Lands. He rummaged through the space ring again and dug out a phone. He pressed the unlock button and found it locked. Lu Shu looked at Lu Xiaoyu. Know the password? There is none in the memory fragments. However, I have an indistinct feeling that there is something wrong with this phone, Lu Xiaoyu said. This feeling of unease came from the memory fragments. Oh, Lu Shu nodded. Stuff like phones were best left untouched. Who knew if there would be any function such as automatic snapping of picture by the phone if the password entered was wrong? For example, Lu Shu had heard from someone previously at the Foundation forum about somebody who was worried that his wife would check his phone. He had therefore downloaded a software to take photos automatically. As long as a person entered the wrong password, he could find out who was trying to unlock his phone. To be honest, Lu Shu was not quite clear what was the selling point of such a software, but it probably had its market demand. In principle, most people would not set their phone in such a way, but they would never know if this phone did indeed have such a function and could send the pictures taken automatically too. Lu Shu simply tossed the phone into the Seal of Lands. He was very sure that nobody could track the device through the Seal of Lands. Chapter 302, Darkness Kingdom, Part 2. Lu Shu continued to search in the space ring. It felt really awesome to be able to open the treasure. Regardless of whether it was useful or not, it was a profit as long as it was found. He found an exquisite handbag. Lu Shu was such a black hole that he couldn't recognize what brand the handbag is. He decisively searched the treasure box for items, and it was full of items that he couldn't recognize. There were red and blue copies, and even items that had a photo of Anthony Smith on it. Lu Shu didn't need all of those. Instead, there was a bank card with English words on it. It made Lu Shu's eyes sparkled. He lifted his head and asked, "Do you know the password to this card?" Lu Xiaoyu crossed her legs and sat on her bed. She tilted her head and thought for a moment, I do, but from what I saw from the memory fragments, there is no money in this card. He transferred the money to another online account. I did not get the related information from his memory fragments. Lu Shu was slightly disappointed. He finally managed to find a card, but it didn't have any money. The opponent was a Class B tycoon, and he was definitely very rich, but the biggest part of it couldn't be found. However, even when the card has money, Lu Shu won't dare to take it. Who knows whether there would be anyone checking on the transactions for this card? Xiaoyu. From his memory, how did he feel about this card? Is it safe? Lu Shu lifted his head and asked. Since he had something extra, it would be a waste if he didn't use it. It's safe. At least he himself thought that it is safe. It's a bank card from America, Lu Xiaoyu said. Lastly, he found a USB in the ring. Lu Xiaoyu walked over after seeing the USB and she said, from the memory, once this thing is plugged into a program on the computer, it can open a website. I'm not sure about the actual content of the website, but it seems to be important. Lu Shu froze for a moment, a website? However, he thought of another question, Xiaoyu. You reading the memories from their soul won't affect your character, right? If it's like that, let's not do anything like this even when there are really huge benefits. Lu Xiaoyu shook her head, it won't. Their memories are like a set of information for me. Their feelings and characters cannot affect me. Lu Shu felt relieved, that's great. Lu Shu. Lu Xiaoyu's eyes were bright, should we go and find a place to see what's in this USB? Go to the internet bar? Lu Shu pondered for a while. Just nice, we should take advantage to see what is inside before leaving Qingzhou. In case the other party can track the location, they can only track to Qingzhou. Lu Shu thought that this method is reliable, with the skills the two of them have. It wasn't difficult for them to avoid all the surveillance, however, I don't think we can go to the internet bar. I heard from the students of Luocheng that identity card is needed to go to the internet bar. Even they had to borrow from other people. Otherwise, they won't be able to play. No. At this moment, Lu Shu suddenly remembered. He still had Li Dian's fake identity card with him. When leaving, Lu Shu saw someone leaving 2 small cards through the gap below the door. It was something about 600 including overnight, and the pictures looked exciting. Lu Xiaoyu looked back at Lu Shu coldly, what are you doing? These people are not decent. Lu Xiaoyu distress level, plus 399. Coughs, Lu Shu threw away the card embarrassingly. However, he couldn't show weakness through his mouth, for this, they don't want your diamond ring, your car, nor your house. They only want you as a person. A nice lady like this, what's wrong with giving them 600? Yes, Lu Shu you can try. Lu Xiaoyu distress level, plus 499. I was only joking. Taking advantage of the darkness, the two of them sneaked out quietly through the rooftop of the hotel. Lu Shu controlled the corpse of the dog, but his perception was that he could use the corpse of dog directly to cover the surveillance camera. It required more effort when there was cross-monitoring, but it was possible to avoid all of them. Lu Xiaoyu stood on a rooftop and opened her own domestic magical device. There is an internet bar that is 500 meters away in the east. Let's go. The two of them avoided all the surveillance camera and stood in front of the internet bar. Lu Shu put on his hood and went to the entrance. The administrator was extremely tired at 3 a.m., and he was lying down on the army bed behind the bar counter to sleep. Lu Shu knocked on the bar counter, I want to use the internet. The female administration woke up confusedly, and she didn't even notice the surveillance screen that was opposite of the bar counter was black. She asked with sleepy eyes, are you using overnight? Lu Shu stunned for a moment, there is this kind of service at the internet bar. What services? The female administrator's face was a blur, what did she say? Oh. Sorry about it, Lu Shu realized he thought wrongly only then. using throughout the night at internet bars. Some places called it night market, while some called it overnight, or there are even have wonderful names. He handed over Li Diane's identity card and $10, not going to use it overnight. Initially, Lu Shu was still worried that they would check the profile on the identity card. In the end, they only cared about earning money and didn't care about whose identity card are you using. Lu Shu walked over to the corner of the internet bar silently. Every time he was about to enter the next surveillance zone, the corpse of dog will go forward to block that camera first. This is the first time Lu Shu came to the internet bar in his entire life. Even though it was 3 a.m., there were still teenagers who were passionately shouting, "We are fighting in the wild. How did you die again? Why did you stupidly went to that area? Are you retarded?" Lu Shu had no chance to play such games. However, the current world was a marvelous game to Lu Shu. It was full of suspense and thrilling. Lu Xiaoyu came in from the small window at the toilet. The two of them could be said to be extremely careful. After all, the Class B master needed the USB to log into the website. There was nothing wrong with being extra cautious. It was said that the details that determine the outcome could not stop at one's mouth, but there had to be actual actions. Just like a phrase from the ancient people, knowing and not doing it signifies that it is not known. The business at night for this internet bar was not very good. The internet bar with over 200 square meters looked empty and the lights for some areas are off. However, this fitted Lu Shu's requirements. He brought Lu Xiaoyu to one corner and started the laptop. After logging in, he plugged in the USB. The screen blacked out suddenly, and it automatically opened a fully English website. The website name on the page was A Dark Kingdom. Lu Shu's English was not bad, and this meant Dark Kingdom. On the top right-hand corner, there was a language selection button named Language. Once he clicked it, there were over 30 selections. There were Chinese, Thai, Japanese, English and many others. Is this a global website? Lu Shu was suspicious about this. Otherwise, why was there a web page with so many words? Chapter 303, The Collection of Gods, Part 3. Lu Shu was looking through while sitting on the seat, and Lu Xiaoyu was obediently beside him. Leaning its chin on its elbow on the armrest of Lu Shu's chair, Little Fury climbed onto Lu Xiaoyu's head. When Little Fury saw all the words that it didn't know, it felt a wave of despair internally. It won't have to learn other languages, right? There is so much content, Lu Shu sighed. Once the interface of Dark Kingdom is opened, there was an amazing layout for the news page. Below the title of the web page, there are 2 lines. The first line, "Please don't be worried that the Dark Kingdom will leak your information unless we are dead." The second line, "You should follow the dark, so to avoid the light. Have a great time." From Lu Shu's memory, the second line seemed to be from the Holy Bible. The original text was "You should follow the light, so to avoid the dark." In the end, it was opposite for the Dark Kingdom. However, Lu Shu did not believe about the prevention of identity leak. It was better to trust himself than others. He was going to bring Xiaoyu through this website to see what was magical about it. If it wasn't for the rules, he didn't think that he could log in again next time. Of course, there was another protection layer now. His login identity was Anthony, and not Lu Shu himself. The updates on the news page were quite recent. The first news was about the end of the Salt Lake relics from today afternoon. However, the information inside was rather sketchy. It only mentioned that the relics had ended and that Chen Baili's power improved again, but there was nothing describing the process. Then, to read in-depth messages, a payment of $300,000 was required. Instead, Lu Shu breathed in the cold air. Publishing news was worth so much money. And this Dark Kingdom extremely resourceful, the news has gotten was so immediate. However, Lu Shu was clear that during this trip to the relics he also only killed one spy. He was sure that there are others. Initially, at Beimang relics, Yuzhou had a population of 300 million and there were 9 spies. Now in Qingzhou, there should be more than one, right? If there was selling information for spies, it was not rare. Or it was not impossible for the internal staff of the Heavenly Network to sell information. It was just that Lu Shu doesn't have the extra money to how detailed was the information about Chen Baili, or the extent of understanding about what happened in the Salt Lake relics. Talking about this type of website, the Heavenly Network would surely know about its existence, right? There was no reason for it to not know, so Lu Shu did not need to care about such issues. He continued to read the news in sequence, but only looked at the title and summary, not the content. The Department of Faith Theory had an additional member who is a Class B. Lu Shu knew about it. He learned it while attending Daoyuan classes, and it was mentioned during the Heavenly Network topic. The Department of Faith Theory was the predecessor of the Court of Religious Judges. The appearance of Fuegians, it was confirmed that it does not belong to the practice of religion. Lu Shu knows about the Fuegians. The name of the Indians who were from the southern tip of South America. There were around 10,000 people during the 19th century, but there isn't much as of now. It was distributed around the northeast area, and the language is one of the indigenous Native American languages. They were used to sniffing a large amount of smoke or medical drugs, such that they were entranced and helped to cure others. Lu Shu felt that this route was very wild. They made themselves crazy with medicines, then made other people believe that they had the power to cure diseases. This was not something normal people could do. Lu Shu suddenly realized this main page looked like a paid foundation forum. The information provided had more variety and more elitist. The foundation forum was opened for the word, but it seemed that this dark kingdom was only opened for awakened people and practitioners. As long as you had money, you would be able to know more. This was the power of money. Furthermore, this was only the basic usage of the Dark Kingdom. Lu Shu clicked open a hire button, and inside it was all the pricing to hire awakened people and practitioners for certain tasks. After each message, there was an indication for the classes that could take up the work. Lu Shu took a look at Anthony's accounts class, Class B. It seemed like there was a link between class and ability. The higher the ability, it was possible to take up missions with higher difficulty. Lu Shu also realized one thing. For missions indicated for Class D and below, the reward was an amount of commission. However, for Class C and above, there were more and allowed for items exchange. He opened Anthony's personal page and found a note. The collection of God employed Class B Master to get rid of Chen Baili. The release time was very near, and Anthony took it right after. After that, there was one more that released the list of people who entered the Salt Lake relics and their ability after the lake opened. However, Lu Shu could not find his own name, and Lu Xiaoyu and Shen Zhuan's names were not in it as well. Rewards, deep sea white sand, half of the fixed deposit. It was left at the Dark Kingdom and was self-collection. That saying, the rewards that these people got were all from the Dark Kingdom. It seemed the Dark Kingdom had a huge influence, otherwise, how could it have so much human and physical resources? The Collection of God? This name sounded unfamiliar. Lu Shu had no idea which practitioner group had this name. However, there was a hint. From the legends of the country of islands. The world in the heaven where many of the gods stayed is called Gao Tian Yuan. Of course, Lu Shu thought that this was nonsense. Anyway, everyone knew that how big the country of islands was. According to the myths, once something big happened in Gao Tian Yuan, the gods would gather at the high city and river in heaven. They would start the collection of gods meeting, to discuss how to deal with the situation. Of all the things here, which one is more violating? Oh right, the paddy field. You were already a heavenly country, was there still a need to plant rice? How was it possible for every single god to pull up their pants to plant? It was simply made one's eyes sting. As such, Lu Shu suspected that this collection of gods was from the country of island. While on the higher page, Lu Shu also saw a list of strength grading, credibility grading, and others. Some of the mission was displayed as taken, while some had no one even after half a year. Out of all, there were 3 missions that stood out: kill Nia Ting, kill Li Xiao and kill Feng Yeming. All 3 of these missions' target were 3 of the heavenly kings, and no one took them up till today. From this, it was possible to see the influence of the heavenly network in another form. Anthony took a huge risk to go to the Salt Lake relics to kill Chen Bai Li. In the end, he died a horrible death. About that, why was there no mission to kill Anthony? After searching for something, there was still nothing. At this moment, Lu Shu suddenly saw the trading selection for Dark Kingdom items. His eyes brightened. Even though it was unlikely for him to play around with trading items, but it was good to look around and earn money. Chapter 304, A One-Time Deal. Lu Shu was not interested in the fightings in the higher section, rather the items trading was more interesting to him. However, the trading page disappointed Lu Shu. Firstly, this Dark Kingdom has a Europe page, an America page, and East Asia page. It was a pity that the traces of Chinese practitioners could not be seen. From this, Lu Shu could not take reference from local prices. Secondly, the trading page had more of item trading rather than buying items with money. Furthermore, the items seemed mostly high-end. It seemed that this place only does high-end item trading. After having some thoughts, he seemed to understand the reason. After all, at this class, money seemed to be unable to accurately measure the value of the items belonging to the practitioners. Of course, some of the items had price tags. However, it is extremely expensive and very limited. Lu Shu pondered for half a day. There were around 2 types of item trading in the Dark Kingdom. One type was the weapons or materials to create weapons that were found from the relics. The other type was medicinal materials, fruits, or those that are edible. He even saw a fruit that was said to have the probability to awaken the frost power. In addition, the Dark Kingdom even added their experimental results. There was only one of this fruit, and it was indeed true that some people did eat it and awaken their frost power. It was just that the request of the other party is something that Lu Shu hadn't heard before. It sounded as if it was really awesome, but this type of fruit that would quicken the awakening should have a high cost. They actually have fruits that would allow awakened people to have a selected power, Lu Shu thought through melancholy. The world is changing too quickly. If it wasn't because Lu Shu was afraid that this website held too much information about him, he even wanted to land every day to look at the changes in the world. There was a need to know that even though the financial forum had an explosion of information, but compared to the hidden news here, that place was still weaker. One version for elitist, one version for the public, there was definitely a difference. Lu Shu was extremely sure that Li Xuani and his friends also had this information. However, the financial forum didn't show any form of interest to allow people to study. Then, how could one ensure that his own information was not found? Before confirming this, Lu Shu had to take the safer route first. The reason was, on the trading page, he actually Tier B aptitude, gender female, 17 years old, yet to start practice. Tier C aptitude, gender male, 16 years old, yet to start practice. There was not only simple information as such, but also photos. However, without exception, the people who were being sold were controlled. Even if this organization called the Dark Kingdom was run properly, it was still difficult for it to hide the fact that it had a contempt for the current rules of the world. Honestly, Lu Shu didn't not like such an organization. When the victim was not oneself, everyone would see that as news and topic of interest. However, who knows whether we would become the victim one day. At this moment, Lu Shu suddenly saw Dark Forum option behind the item trading page. Oh, there is even a forum. Lu Shu became happier. Lu Xiaoyu, who was lying down on the armrest of the sofa, rolled her eyes. She doesn't know why Lu Shu was so interested in this group forum now. Lu Shu clicked open the forum and got shocked. Within it, there were content about practice and scolding. This feels like someone from the practitioner's page knocked on someone else's window. There were some posts that can only be seen when paid. Those titles were more appealing, regarding some information and were dug out by the owner. It seemed like the place was for the purpose of direct selling of personal information, and the Dark Kingdom extracted commission. However, the thing that surprised Lu Shu the most was the views of the posts were not low. Each of them already had over 10,000 views. He suddenly thought of a question. His post on the Financial Post got buried quickly because his ID has no popularity. Then Anthony as a Class B master, would he be popular on this forum? Oh, this was highly possible. Furthermore, the outside world did not know about Anthony's death. Lu Shu looked through the rules for posting. It was only Class C and above who could upload paid post, and there was a limit to the number of posts one could upload per day. Furthermore, the paid posts for Class B and C, the Dark Kingdom had a different rate of commission for each class. It was 20% for Class C and 10% for Class B. This organization could be said to be on that was friendly towards the practitioners who were masters and awakened masters who have capabilities. Looking till here, Lu Shu stopped and looked at the payment method for the transaction between Anthony and Dark Kingdom. Even though this bank card couldn't be used now, Lu Xiaoyu said that it was safe. However, that did not mean that it couldn't be used in the future. If he really became a Class A and wished to withdraw money, would he still be scared of someone checking on the surveillance camera? Of course, the main point was that Anthony was a Class B master. His post would definitely be viewed by others. When there are people, there would be distress value. What post should I upload? Lu Shu whispered. It was definite that real information shouldn't be posted. Lu Shu thought about it and started to type at the posting page. Lu Xiaoyu rolled her eyes at Lu Shu after looking at it for a while. At this moment, the practitioners from all around the world who were paying attention to the Dark Kingdom noticed that there was a new post on the forum, and the author was Anthony Smith. This person called Anthony was quite famous on the forum. He was active around the world's dark domain and was cruel and merciless. However, undoubtedly, he was one of the most powerful awakened people in the world. In this world that follows the laws of the jungle, the powerful ones would be noticed, while the weaker ones would be forgotten. The paid post that Anthony posted, even if it needed $20,000 to view it, they would do so too. However, the views for paid posts were lower compared to free posts. The other posts had thousands of views, while this post only had over 100. There were a lot of people who were waiting to buy the information from other people at a lower price. Title: I found the method to upgrade to Class A. This was so attractive. A Class B master appearing to tell everyone how to upgrade to Class A. However, everyone who went in was a blur. They only saw one line in the content: whether I will tell you or not, don't you have a B idea in your heart? You only said this after I am almost broke? Some of the obsessed practitioners felt disgusted. Anthony, are you so poor that you went crazy? Someone who had a Class B tag beside his name commented below the post. What the? I am willing to pay $1 million to buy Anthony's location. Lu Shu saw the distress value increase drastically. Within a short time, even the third nebula's second star was ready. Even though the distress value could only be earned once, the money also could only be earned once and it could be used yet. Everything was a one-time deal. However, this was really about $2 million in cash. Chapter 305, Sleep Talk, Part 1. The practitioners in the Dark Kingdom who were currently concerned with the post felt sore. Those who had paid the $20,000 had the right to comment. As for those who had not, they were still waiting for other practitioners or organizations to sell out information to them at a low price. These people, they could not even see any comments. What's Anthony up to? Someone commented. This was a big shot with a Class B label. The phone call could not get through. Lu Shu was startled upon seeing this. Anthony was so well known in this Dark Kingdom? He discovered that half of the names in the forum seemed to be real names. He compared them to the distress point record of his back-end recorder. More than half of them could actually be checked against the forum names. Among the users with real names, they seem to be the more powerful ones, the class CS and BS. They seem to not mind the slightest whether their true identities were discovered. If not, were they actually trying to flaunt how influential they were? Of course, in this forum there were still many users with pseudonames. They came in all forms, and some were in fact pretty cocky. Lu Shu began to record down the names in his back-end recorder silently. After he got back, he would memorize them properly. One must note that it was certainly not easy to acquire such a large number of real names of these pro practitioners worldwide. No matter if they would be useful in the future, it would still be better to note down in his little notebook the names and also some form of identification to be cross-referenced. They should all be noted down, in case he were to meet any of them in the future in some remains overseas. He could perhaps gain some upper hand then. However, this was still the true names of only a small handful of masters. Lu Shu was thinking, how could he enlarge the scope just a little? Unbeknownst to the foreign masters, their names had been recorded in somebody's little notebook. Someone suddenly commented in the forum, "Start the sale of information please. Can't just let us suffer the disadvantage." That's true. Those outside could not see the situation within. The post could not be opened, how could they see? So, the information could still be sold. Even though the content may be a little far-fetched, if I simply take a picture and sell them, the original content could be proven to be so. The one hoodwinked weren't us, but Anthony. Some of them were beginning to have their own ideas. Did he run into some kind of trouble? Or was it something else? However, it was impossible for them to verify anything now. The truth was, the fee-paying news in the Salt Lake remains had no mention of Anthony at all. It seemed like even the information providers knew nothing of his arrival. Those who knew were still in the minority, Chen Bailey and other high-ranking ones in the Heavenly Network, Lu Shu, Chen Zuan, Lu Xiaoyu, and the employer, Collection of Gods. The piece of news did mention that Chen Bailey was suspected to have been promoted to Class A because he had not hid his flight. These fee payers started to move. No matter what, anything that could be bought must be bought. In the past, those who waited for the information to be sold at low prices had to actively search for fee payers to inquire. Now, there was no longer any need, people were selling of their own accord. $3,000 posts regarding Anthony, anyone? I want. Let me transfer you the money. Such straightforward exchanges were due to the fact that the fee-paying information in the dark forum had always been decent and proper. Moreover, the charged posts were basically always worth the price. The experts, under normal circumstances, would not stoop so low as to try anything funny. In fact, these kind of rules and industrial chain had gradually become the norm in the past 1 year, or so since the great age of magical energy rejuvenation. In the end, it seemed like some strange being had sneaked into the dark forum today. Here, someone had received the transfer. Good, I've received the money. Information. Whether would I tell you, don't you have the slightest idea? The other person? This is what Anthony really said, the information seller quickly explained. I took a photo for you, have you received? Is Anthony crazy? On this side, Lu Shu was recording the real names in his domestic magical device, and in the end, he realized it was impossible to keep up. What is this? Where did all these weird and random names come from, and they contained characters from all across the nation? Forget it. I shall go back and flip through the distress points value again. Lu Shu was feeling slightly dejected. There seemed to be too many errors, but looking at the distress points in the back-end recorder, half the 200,000 distress points needed for the third star was already collected. The first star, 100,000, second star, 100,000, third star, 200,000, fourth star, 400,000, fifth star, 800,000, sixth star, 1,600,000, seventh star, 3,200,000. According to this pattern, it should be so. This time, the reason why he could ascend so rapidly was all due to Anthony. However, such means could only be used once. Lu Shu thought, even the third star required so many distress points, what about the next 4? He should set his strategic sight across the whole globe. Lu Shu kept Anthony's bank card in his seal of lands. If he were to ever bring Xiaoyu to the Americas for a trip, the $2 million over US dollars, along with the $100,000 US dollars in cash and the seal of lands, would save him the trouble of changing money. Also, Lu Shu only learned when he landed upon Dark Kingdom that Anthony's white sands was only half the employment fee, and the other half of the deep-sea white sand was still in the hands of the collection of gods. From the look of his combat situation with Anthony, he had utilized the sands as a body armor in the beginning and only used them as his ultimate weapon of death at the end, when he wanted to end the increasingly difficult fight in the soonest time. Which means to say, this half of the white sands was barely enough to act as a form of defense, and defense and attack cannot be achieved at the same time. If he had the other half of the sand, Lu Shu would probably be long dead. He had no way of knowing if the collection of gods was an organization of the island state. Even the clues to the name of the organization, Lu Shu had blindly guessed it himself. Whether he was correct or not, he could only verify in the future. If it really belonged to the island state, Anthony had wanted to kill Chen Bailey, making Lu Shu's seizing of his half the amount of white sands not feel so stressful after all. Lu Shu, in his heart, had begun to cling on to the other half share of white sand. No matter what, they had posed the greatest threat to him at that time. One must have dreams, what if they were to come true? Good thing is, a soul knows no pain, and it was different from normal people even if injured. It could be quickly kept back into the celestial map for rapid recuperation. In the meantime, using the white sands directly as a mean of attack seemed to be a good idea too. Shall we go back? The flight tomorrow is at 7 p.m, we can continue trying out the delicacies in Xijing City. Lu Shu looked at Lu Xiaoyu, only to realize that she had already fallen asleep, her head on the armrest of the sofa. Little Fury was also snoring away as it lay on Xiaoyu's head. In her sleep, Lu Xiaoyu uttered, "Lu Shu, I want to eat tomato eggs, meat sauce noodles, crepes." Lu Shu, don't let go of my hands.
What does it mean to be happy? 'Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty, then we just put 'em on the shelf. Try to look to the heavens.